What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Gaming Foreplay Podcast, episode number 3. I'm joined today by my co-host, Hope. We got Zan, Forward Progress Madden, Black Phoenix, and Chappy. How you guys doing?
What's going on?
Doing good, doing good.
Yeah, so we're here to discuss the most recent blog from Madden 18. It's the Madden Mechanics Community Request addressed. So I think this is probably one of the most exciting blogs we've received so far. I know we've only received 3, but this one kind of hits home with each one of us, like with our wants, as you could say. If you guys, before we get into this, if you guys want to give a little plug to your channel, where they can find you guys, feel free. We'll go down the list. Zan, you start it off.
Yeah, sure. You can go follow me, twitch.tv/Forward Progress Madden, forward with the number 4. And it's youtube.com/Forward Progress Madden as well.
Phoenix?
All right, what's going on, everybody? Black Phoenix. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/TheBlackPhoenix, and twitch.tv/Black Phoenix. That's Phoenix with numbers for the vowels. That's an easy way to remember it.
And then Chappy.
You can catch me on YouTube and Twitter, Master Chappy, MOSS2 Chappy. And then on Twitch, it's official Master Chappy. Appreciate you guys having me on.
No problem.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come on. So this blog, Rex Dixon, may or may not know him. He's the creative director of Madden. You guys may have heard of him. He said that this is our love letter to the core. Meaning this is for all of the hardcore community, sim community, competitive. I think when we go over this blog, we're mostly going to just focus on the competitive aspects since we have, 3 other competitive players. So feel free to go on down the list, Joe.
All right, so starting off with off-ball injuries, we're not going to really touch too much into this because this is, again, like if you're reading it with us, this is for the sim community. Basically, this is just for players that aren't directly involved in tackles. They can now be injured. It gives it more of a simulation feel to the game. So nice addition, but for the competitive community, this is not going to affect us. But the first one that will is the second one right here, the ball hawk skill mechanic. Users on defense can no longer hold the Y or triangle the entire play on defense and expect to make the interception now. Ball hawk is a timing-based skill, so if the button's held down or pressed for too long, the defender will receive a heavy penalty for his chance of making the catch. Guys, let's just honest opinions. I think we're all for this, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's obviously something that we've needed for the last couple years. People who set up whatever blitz they want, force you to throw hot, and then they just hold triangle or Y the whole time. They're now going to actually have to jump a read, tap the button. I think everybody's going to love that feature.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the first many skill gaps in this whole entire blog so far. I mean, like Zan mentioned, it was kind of annoying, especially when defenders would generally not be able to make a play, but because they've held Y for the whole entire play, they're able to intercept, and that kind of got frustrating and annoying. But now that we can't hold Y anymore, it's definitely more about time and more about skill, so I'm definitely all for it.
Anything that bring that skill gap, I'm all for it. And I'm going to be so happy because there's a lot of guys out there that are going to struggle now. The guys I'm talking about are the ones that are lurking this high route, and the guy magically turns around and plays the underneath because he's holding Y. I'm so happy they updated this and very excited.
Man, that sounds like me. I think I'm going to struggle. It also says quarterbacks can also fake out user defenders holding ball hawk with a pump fake. Pretty interesting, but I don't think we'll see that too much in the high level play.
Yeah, I can't imagine seeing it. I will say this, since I've had a little bit of hands-on with the ball hawk, the new mechanic, you could still hold the button and animate unless they pump fake you. However, like they said, it's going to be a drop. If you're way over your time limit holding the button, you'll still get some sort of drop pick animation. So it's still slightly a win for the defense, but overall it's a lot better. You're not turning the ball over because somebody's just holding the button.
Right, just little tweaks to the skill gap, I think, is one of the best things to see. But next on the list is the hit stick skill mechanic. So I don't know about you guys. I didn't really use the hit stick. I used X or square on the PlayStation to hit the hit sticks. So much easier. It says it's now based on timing and facing angle with more risk and reward. Also brings back the ability for low or high hit sticks by flicking the stick down or up respectively. And then letting a hit stick will be accompanied by a controller rumble and a unique tackle audio. I can't imagine anybody's going to complain about that.
Yeah, I mean, just personally for me, again, like you guys are saying, I think we're going to go over this a lot when we go over each one of these topics. It's just going to make the skill gap, I think, a little bit. Like people want the skill gap to be a little bit greater, and this is just, it's small, it's not huge, but it's something, and I'm for it.
I think this definitely going to affect that skill gap more than people even think. Because a lot of people this year got fumbles off of those X big hits. And, that risk reward really wasn't there this year. I mean, just about every tackle was using the X button unless you were chasing someone down. Then you got that ugly strip animation. But definitely a lot of big hits this year, especially in MUT with the big hitters. I think it'll change some stuff for sure.
Probably one of the more exciting things now to actually have to like line them up and then go for the hit stick. But even then, that's still a risk. Speaking of my time for EA Play and stuff like that, and from what I've noticed, it's definitely a game changer for sure. Like I know a couple of my opponents that I played were so used to doing it from the X button, and like Chappy mentioned, like trying to get like the nasty trip animation, and he just couldn't do it. And I was able to run past very, very cleanly. So I definitely am for now. I'm definitely in favor for more line them up, face it properly, then hit stick them instead of what we've been having for years.
I would say that the biggest thing that somebody could do out of the box this year is call toss for the computer and just let them toss to the outside, and then you try to go and line up these hits, because you're going to notice a big time difference. Everything that I've experienced has been that hit stick is actually kind of hard this year, and I kind of welcome that personally.
Yeah. Moving on to the next one, the ball carrier special moves. Every one of the ball carrier special moves, such as the juke, spin, and hurdle, has been updated for Madden 18. The moves are faster and more efficient. The moves are also less punitive in terms of fumble chances, and most importantly, user-controlled players on defense can now be faked out as well as effectively as AI-controlled players, especially when attempting to hit stick. Again, I think when we looked at last year's jukes, they were like highlighted before Madden came out, before Madden 17 came out, and they were a big letdown. And this year, if they're anything better than last year, I think I'll like it a little bit more.
Yeah, just name one move that worked last year. I'll wait.
Left trigger spin. Left trigger spin. Sometimes, if they didn't spin the wrong way. Which wasn't often.
Truck stick.
Stiff arm.
The truck and the stiff arm, right.
What if I battle ready with Ricky Williams spammy day?
It'll be good to bring some elusive backs back into relevance. I mean, speed was helpful this year, but it was definitely the year of the power back, in my opinion, for 17. So hopefully this will bring back a little bit more balance and more relevance to those smaller guys.
I'm on the same boat with Chappy, especially for myself that likes to use the speed backs like the Devontae Freemans, the Shady McCoys, those type of backs. Being able to juke more effectively in open space or even one-on-one against a defender is definitely going to be a lot more fun, and I definitely look forward to seeing how they work out in Madden 18.
Don't sleep on Le'Veon Bell and regs. I think he's tier 1 in every single move. Juke, spin, and what's the other one? I can't even think right now.
Hurdle.
Yeah, hurdle. So yeah, definitely make sure you guys are practicing with him.
Yeah, he's like tier 5 in real life with all the moves.
But I mean, one thing that I'd like to point out for this, as I just forgot it out of my head. Skip it. I'll come back to it. I'll find it.
All right. Moving on, dropped interceptions, probably the number one complaint that I've seen as a viewer watching the Madden Championship Series. Nothing hurts me more than watching somebody throw into traffic and then, his opponent's defenders drop the ball. Pretty much interceptions with, it just says good catch rating and is open. There will be a significantly higher chance the interception will be caught. Keep in mind, you'll still see dropped interception in this scenario if the defender's catch rating does not meet the threshold. Catches in traffic can also still result in drop picks. I think that's just the like it's to me it's like such an obvious change just to increase the skill. We're gonna say like 200 times the skill gap of the game. You see it so often.
Yeah, I think that they posted a figure from Pro Football Focus over the summer that said that, what was it, 1/3 of all catchable interceptions were actually dropped in real life last year. And I think that that was something that they used to point to last year, that maybe the dropped interceptions were sim. But when you're talking about tournament play, your opponent's only going to make, if they're a really good player, 1, 2 really bad reads over the course of a game. And if you drop that interception, that's such a massive swerve to your, pun intended there, swerve, to your win chances. You drop that pick, that's possibly 6 points out of your pocket, and maybe 6 if they score on that drive into theirs. So, yeah, this is a no-brainer. It's huge.
I'm in the same boat. It's definitely huge. I mean, the way I play and like to play is every play matters. So having the dropped interception is definitely frustrating, especially, and you guys can all agree with this, especially if you know what your opponent's going to do before they do it, or if you put yourself or your defenders in a good position to make a play on the ball, and then have them drop a wide open pick is definitely and extremely frustrating. So seeing that being changed now to where they actually go for the ball more and pick the ball up more is definitely a good thing. The one thing I'm going to be curious about is this threshold. Like, is there a certain number, like 60? Is it 55? Is it 70? That's kind of what I'm more curious about. But for now, I mean, the good catch rating, I'll take it. If it means more picks and interceptions, I'm all for it.
Another thing I'm curious about along with that, Phoenix, is the threshold going to be position based? Is it different for D-backs and linebackers? But I'm very excited for it. I think we've been talking about the skill gap. I think this is one of those things that is going to really separate point differentials in games, rather than beating someone you're clearly better than by 3 or 7. You might be able to beat them by 14, 20 plus now, kind of like back in the good old days, as you'll hear some of the tournament guys talk about, where you could just really, really separate yourself. I think this is going to be one of those things right here where if you don't have a good offense and you're relying on catching passes in traffic, you're going to really pay for it.
I mean, and I'm agreeing with what everyone said so far. Me just thinking on it a little bit more. Are they going to start everyone off with a lower catch rating? Because we know in mud how mud things go. And with a lot of the tournaments being mud-based, those ratings can get high pretty quick. Are they going to start off like some of the better guys with the better hands even lower in the year? How are they going to, where are they going to start everything? So I'm curious, like you're saying, with these thresholds, where are they gonna put the guys with the best hands to start the year? Is Champ Bailey gonna have the best hands but only be like a 50 something? Is that gonna be the highest threshold? Is that gonna trigger the best threshold? Who knows? I'm looking forward to seeing that.
One thing.
Wonder if it could be a moving threshold.
Yeah, true. I'm okay with that.
And I know for the one player I'm curious the most, speaking of these thresholds and lower catching ratings and stuff like that Deion Sanders that you give with the Gold Edition, I wonder what his catching stats are going to be, and if he's going to be a kind of a crucial guy, at least in pass coverage, that's going to catch a lot more picks, or is it, like you guys were mentioning, like a moving threshold where he just continually increases or maybe decreases depending on how the year goes?
Yep. Hope you got anything, or are we good to go to the next one?
We're good to go.
All right, so next one being Swerve. We all know what Swerve is if you don't. Swerve is the ability for the receivers to swerve out defenders out of position to play the ball. The team has fixed several of these assignments and the positioning issues to ensure that this tactic is no longer effective. Defenders will play the ball effectively instead of locking in with the receiver. If Swerve's gone, I'm happy. Just like it forces people to have an actual scheme. So go at it, guys.
Yeah, I think my opinion of the swerve last year was pretty well documented. I hated it. Thought it should have been banned. I still think it should have been banned. It is what it is. I'm glad it's gone. Good riddance.
Yeah, as soon as the swerve was mentioned or I seen it, I kind of just did a major facepalm on it. Obviously, it didn't make the game look good, especially in a competitive scene where the game's being broadcasted to Twitch and the national live internet, as Gibbs like to call it. I think it was kind of corny, to be honest. Is especially when you're most of the time going to have to be forced to play like a too high look. Otherwise, if you can't defend the swerve, you're getting, scored on for 6 and stuff like that, which is definitely annoying. So seeing that gone, yes, all the way, yes, 10 out of 10, yes.
I'm a big fan of the swerve being gone. My issue with the swerve in 17 wasn't that it worked against computer. My biggest issue personally was that you couldn't just use or click on and stop it. Um, and then along with what Phoenix was saying is that you had to almost play a too high look or even cover 4 or cover 3. That's going to open it up defensively this year to allow more of those defenses, more of those hybrid looks, more of those unique creative defenses that is going to allow for more defensive games. In my opinion, this year, it was an offensive game outside of the red zone. The red zone, defense locked up, but because of the swerve and just everything else, it was tough to get stops between the 20s.
I think it's really interesting that they decided to not ban the swerve. And then if you would have told me that the guy who was best at swerving was going to get picked off, I don't even know how many times, like 4 times by Problem. Like if you told me that, it looked like just the story of it was like so fake. I could not believe what I was watching. Problem picking off Volterax so many times. But I want to ask you guys in terms of like user catchy mechanics and exploits or whatever you want to call them, tactics. Is the swerve the worst that you have ever seen, or is there rocket catch from previous year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just got to come down to what you yourself had control over. And I'll let you guys go since you guys are the competitive goons. But I think if you have control to stop it, you have a better chance of not having control at all.
True story. Problem right. Came to Minnesota. He played a player named Dietrich. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. Mm-hmm. But essentially, my cousin up here figured out how to do the rocket catch with the right stick. Dimitri was in love with this, but he didn't have any offense around it. And I think that's what happened with Volt. He didn't have an offense around it. So Problem came up here, kind of did the same thing. He just blitzed him like crazy, beat him by like 20 points. Nonetheless, Problem is fantastic for just beating. If there's just a gimmick, you're not going to beat Problem. You're going to have a gimmick and an offense or just have a good offense. But with that said, I think the rocket catch was the worst. That or the curls. I don't know. You remember those, Zan, the super curls? Those were annoying.
Yeah, what was that, Madden 09, the year of flanker screen and 3 rocket curls?
Yeah, those to me were very annoying because, I mean, geez, you could commit your whole defense and still catch it.
I will say this, though. With the rocket catch, I could control my guy. He wasn't detached from the play by what the offense was doing. It took a lot of stick, but if you clicked on with somebody like a Cromartie or a Namdi or whatever, you could animate, and didn't matter who you put out there against the swerve. If you were in deep third coverage, deep fourth coverage, they just took that guy out of the play, and it was very, very difficult. I won't say that you couldn't click on at all against the swerve because it was found out later in the year that you could, but even then it was still a very risky proposition to call cover 3, even if you felt very confident in your ability to pick off the swerve.
So the swerve just kind of dictated what defense you could run, whereas the rocket
100%.
catch was
right.
More, it took skill, like defensive stick skill to kind of counter it.
If you got the animation, though, like, I don't know, to me, I forgot, was it Madden 15 or Madden 25, where at some point in the year you had to get at least like a 6'2", 6'3" corner, and like had like a certain threshold of jumping to be able to like contest like rocket catching and even the face catch and stuff like that. And even then, you weren't guaranteed to have that animation to jump up. So
plays ball aggressive trait.
There you go. That's what I meant. Yeah. That was a big thing too. I think because I remember didn't you put out a video for this, Zan? Like you had like Richard Sherman and Patrick Peterson as like examples of guys that could potentially play that face catch, rocket catch.
Yeah, and then I even went and showed like 60 overall backup special teamers that had aggressive trait and how they actually were better at defending it than like 95 overall guys that were conservative.
All right, so let's tackle this next one with the curl flat zones. Another top community request was a curl flat or the purple zone. Curl flats would crash to the flats and leave deeper routes open down the sideline. We implemented a new rule called no cover zone, where underneath defenders won't jump routes 5 yards and under. We yay or nay for this, boys?
It's funny. I think if I get it out of my mind that it's a curl flat zone and I just call it a corner zone, that's what it's going to take away is the corner routes. What we complained about for so long was curl flats actually doing what they're designed to do. Drop deep and then rally to the short. And unfortunately, cloud flats didn't really do their job last year. So, as a result, this year, curl flats are kind of there to defend the corner. As long as I know where they're going to go, I guess I'm happy with it. I can scheme around it.
Anything to help me play defense better, I'm all for it. And the fact that zone does what it's supposed to do, I'm definitely for it. So I'll say yay.
I'm a big fan of this. My biggest issue as a defensive when I'm scheming is if I want to cover one thing and I put my guy in a specific zone or adjustment to stop it and it still works, that bothers me kind of more than anything else. But the fact that I can say now I can put a hard flat out there, know the underneath's covered, now I can put this curl flat and know that the corners or those deeper routes downfield are going to get covered, because this year some of the corner routes gave a lot of the zones issues just because they were a little bit deeper. And, you're giving up 15, 20, 30 yards off of those plays. It can be a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, I think as long as it just covers the corner route, that's fine. I think you bring up a good point that deeper corner routes are one of the more difficult routes to cover for the bots, for your CPU defenders, even if you're making adjustments. Next up, fumble recovery. They just touched on legacy issue with pile ups. We've all seen it, where it's like 30 seconds of literally both teams trying to get the ball. I don't think too much needs to be said about that, but they have next up here user-controlled linebackers. It says they made some alterations to defender run curves and turn rates to ensure that only elite defenders, user defenders, are capable of making these types of plays. Lower rated defenders will not be able to take away the middle of the field as effectively. Zan, since you've played it, I assume that's more so about athleticism?
Yeah, it's 100% about athleticism. And I mean, I'll go on record saying this pre-launch. From what I played, it's not as bad as it sounds. I do think that it's going to be important for those of you playing Ultimate Team or whatever you play to make sure that your user player has really high agility, or else you're going to have trouble kind of peeling off of routes. It's basically they're taking away our ability to cover 4 routes, which doesn't happen in real life.
Okay, so let me just hit back and just go through and ask everybody. Do you prefer one user to be able to cover 3-4 routes themselves, or do you kind of prefer this change where it's honestly this feels like a sim hit in terms of competitive on the sim to competitive scale? It leans towards more simulation.
I like it. I mean, like I said, I can only reference my time at EA Play and what I played, and I think it's definitely going to take some time getting used to, especially how we've been able to cover routes before in the past, and now having to be a little bit more slower, a little bit more sluggish, except like maybe like a Ryan Shazier, maybe like a Luke Kuechly, who is obviously more athletic. It's definitely going to be an adjustment, and I think the better players will be able to play a little bit more better and cover a little bit more than, I guess, your average bum player. So I think it's a little bit better. I like it.
Now, my question to y'all that have played it, are you still able to cover the underneath and then get the crazy animation to jump the route 10 yards downfield?
I wasn't able to.
If you haven't already input your ball hawk, yeah.
Okay.
It's all timing. I'll say something else. I don't find it as noticeable in coverage as I do in run defense. because like we talked about, the juke moves are much more effective this year than the spins are, and they need to be. So you're kind of going to have to retrain your mindset on angles and pursuit, and all. It's going to be a transition, certainly for the first couple weeks. I think run defense for a lot of players is going to be a really tough spot, especially if you've relied on user stopping the run for the past few years. You're really going to have to kind of grill yourself on the run fits and learn what you're capable of and what you're not capable of as a user.
If I may
Last
ask
for
a
me.
question, though,
Go
sorry.
Phoenix, go.
If I may ask a question to you, Zan, from what you've experienced and what you've seen from this blog, any ideas of players that might be really good at, being user controlled linebackers? Like, would you say like a Shazier type of guy, or would you say more like Deion Jones? Like, what's your player
Yeah,
choice, I guess?
speed, agility, acceleration, all those want to be really high. I would almost consider teaching yourself how to lurk with the safety again, like the old days, because I think those players are just going to meet those. I don't know what the thresholds are, even if there are thresholds, but those players are probably going to meet the athleticism requirements to actually be a good user player, more so than most of the linebackers out of the box, at least.
I'm personally happy that they're making it a bigger gap now between who can be an elite user and who can't. I found it too easy that certain guys are able to stick with certain routes, that guys that should have been a little bit more stiff in the hips with the lower agility were still able to keep up last year. I think making that gap a little bit bigger, I'm for it. It's good to see them changing the user, especially because the user-controlled linebacker was so big, and like Zan's saying, moving back to the user of the safety might be better for the game. Next being the rack drops. So drop racks, where rack is run after catch. The drop racks is one of the biggest technical issues we dealt with on Madden 17. Our online team worked on this area extensively with the gameplay team to ensure this problem is resolved in Madden 18. We also did a lot of tuning to the organic knockout system to ensure fewer cases of dropping a catch due to a collision once the ball has been secured. Our QA team has spent countless hours of online testing to ensure we deliver expected outcomes. I mean, this is just, to me, this is a big split between a sim game and a competitive game. And a sim player would want, the ball to be dropped here and there or randomly. But if for the competitive guys, you don't want that bread, all that money on the line to be lost because of a dropped rack or dropped open catch.
Right. You just need that consistency, and they say it's a technical issue. I'm gonna guess if you're a sim guy, I'm sure they'll drop all the racks that you want, and you can be happy. But for me, it's one of the most frustrating things. It's essentially punishing, the player for making an open read. That's not okay.
Not at all.
That literally cost me a game. Right before halftime, Tim Brown against Skimbo. Drops it, 14-point swing right there, man.
So it's letting the game decide who can win or lose a game at some points with those big swings.
It is. The thing about all these things we're talking about with the skill gap is that what you have to understand is when you're playing at a high level, when it's two players that are similar skill level, it's literally going to come down to a couple plays. And if it's just a random draw or something out of your control that is the difference, that doesn't feel rewarding as a player. But if that difference is because you made an adjustment or you made the right decision or play, that's more rewarding as a competitive player. So I think this is huge.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat as Chappy here. I noticed the rack drops more in like receivers or tight ends that are on the flat route more so than anything. And again, like Chappy said, like one or two plays can make the difference in the whole entire game, especially if they're two at the same skill level. So I definitely think, again, them fixing it, definitely for it, for sure.
Awesome. I want to tack on here. They also have directional control of rack catches. A player running out of bounds on a throw to the flat was a common occurrence. Yes, it was. It drove me insane. I always thought, like, what the hell is my guy doing? Why can't he just turn upfield? This year, they added branch out windows that allow you to steer the exit angle of your rack catches. Simply push the left stick in the direction you want to exit the catch following the rack animation. if anybody here complains about it, I gotta question your sanity.
know what, Rob?
Let me make you question my sanity, Hope. How would you feel if Austin Hooper just racks and peels upfield like a Ferrari? How would you feel about that?
So that is definitely something that I thought of when I said it. I thought, what if they get a little speed boost? Because, it's animation based. I've played enough sports games to know that it's all about the best animations. That would definitely need to be fine tuned, but I think controlling the direction of your rack catch is only a good thing.
I just want to make it known that's not something that I've seen happen. I'm just questioning how people would feel about that. Yeah, I think that's, I would tie it to a trait. If somebody has makes rack catches, yes, maybe give them steerable. If they don't, then dice roll the steerable. I mean, how do you feel about that?
That could be a potential maybe muck chemistry that you're like, wow, I got to pay 4 points for that? Pass.
True.
You
You know what route I'm hoping this makes relevant again is the swing pass out of the backfield. I was very disappointed in 17 with the swing route. It was almost unusable. You're better off putting them on an out route, but if you can get upfield, I think that route has some relevance again.
Agreed. It's, at least for me, especially out of pistol formations where you have the running back on the swing pass. Those are to see those potentially back. Yeah, definitely for sure.
All right. So next, hard flat zones. The community stated that they wanted hard flats to play the flats more aggressively. We did some work on their logic, so they do a better job of reading the route progression and taking away throws to the flats. Were you guys people that were a little bit angry at this, or is this like a little bit minor to you?
Yes.
Personally,
Hard flats aren't hard enough.
yeah,
Okay.
personally, I like it that they're making them more aggressive because I've lost a couple games where a guy would throw, say, a table route or something, and I've got a hard flat there, but he'll kind of cheat towards the inside and he gives up that underneath, and that's really frustrating when I specifically want him to just cover whatever is just short and outside.
I mean, it comes down to this. I mean, you guys played this game competitively as well. I mean, how many times have we said, "Hey, I got my guard in the hard flat. Like he's in the hard flat. Like get the ball or make the play and stuff like that." To see him being a lot more aggressive, yeah, that was something I was definitely banging the drum on. Like we need way more aggressive hard flats, and even like I said, I can only speak for my EA play preference. Yeah, if you throw it there and there's a guy's in the hard flat, he's picking that off. He is definitely picking it off. So you gotta be extremely careful and read the field properly.
I think that's one of the more satisfying adjustments when you finally put your linebacker or whoever in a hard flat, and you outthink your opponent there, and it just takes it back for 6.
All right. AI Defender SWAT versus INT. Another top competitive community request was to remove outcomes where defenders would SWAT down what would have been an easy interception. On competitive only, defenders will now always go for the INT on an open read on the ball. This is perfect because how many times, and you guys are all going to say yes, but how many times did they throw it right at your damn defender and he didn't do jack? He just stood there and swatted it like nonchalantly with one hand, and he could easily picked it.
Volleyball.
Yeah.
Yeah, volleyball for sure.
Click on.
Oh, come on, Chappy.
Give you a hard time, man. No, I've definitely experienced that where you're lurking maybe a post over the middle, and then the linebacker's actually in position to get it, and he just swats it, and it's just very frustrating. So I like this one.
One of the things that always like bothered me personally, at least in 17 and even going back to 16 here, is that your defenders was swatted on first down, second down, third down, but on fourth down, for some reason, I don't know if it's like a mechanic thing or AI shift or whatever the case may be, but they always tend to go for the pick on fourth down, especially when you don't need like fourth and forever, and they catch the pick, and it's like, well, where was that like the first 2 times he threw right at your face, So, yeah, definitely, I hated the volleyball spike swats. Definitely glad to see them go for the ball more.
Yeah, I think that in conjunction with the increased interceptions, I'm curious to see like the data that EA gets of how many interceptions per game, for like the first month compared to last year for the first month. I assume everybody's going to average like 2 interceptions a game.
Me, probably 5.
And if if that number is high, Rex Dixon, I am begging you, do not touch it, because we need to retrain our minds as competitive Madden players and casual Madden players on what is a football read. And
Thank you, Zach.
by dropping the picks and by allowing catches in double coverage, and I'm going to rant. I can feel it. I'm going to rant. Just don't touch it. Please don't touch it.
You only learn by your mistakes. I mean, why take away mistakes from people? You're going to learn not to throw things if you get penalized. Let it happen. Don't be a dumbass. I mean, come on.
Like,
Yeah.
real
I
true
told-
story. Like, for anybody that's played for more since like at least Madden 12, you don't feel comfortable throwing into double coverage, because back in those days, you literally were punished. You know, they were going to click on, they were going to strafe, and it was probably going to be an interception. So you learned over time, I'm not making this bad read. I'm just not going to do it because I'm going to turn the ball over. But now you're less punished, and, you know, a lot of players, they're willing to take the risk because of the reward is very good. You're going to get 30, 40 yards, and the risk is, you know, maybe a swat. Probably a swat, another swat, maybe a dropped pass. Maybe 1 out of 10 times you're going to get an interception. I'll live with that, you know. So I'm very excited about that.
I mean, my theory, I agree with all you guys, and I'm just gonna say, like, this is my theory when it comes to these interceptions. Is that for me personally, I would rather throw 5 or 6 interceptions in a game, and they get picked off, pick 6, whatever the case may be, and know at the end of the day, at the end of the game, like, dang, I gotta get better. I gotta make more better reads. I gotta, call different plays, stuff like that. Then lose a game that my opponent keeps getting bailed out because they throw the double, triple covers maybe like 10 times and get picked off maybe once if we're lucky. So I'd rather take my lumps early, and I agree with Zan. Rex, please don't fix it. This is one of those things, we just let us take our lumps. We'll adjust. We'll get better. Just don't touch it.
I'll take that a step further. I'd rather lose a game where I throw 5 picks and learn from it than win a game where I literally just threw at my opponent's head all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
Facts.
All right. So we already went over the directional control of rat catches. If anyone wants to hit on a little more, say aye. All right, good. Size and weight factor. The formula used to determine the outcomes of hit sticks and impact blocks will now use weight and momentum of the players involved in the interaction. You will see far less instances of smaller players successfully landing a hit stick on a bigger ball carrier, or wide receivers impact blocking bigger linebackers, especially when not moving with enough speed to make a big hit. We saw, I think, maybe a little bit of the weight or size factor with Zan's Fat 5. I think this is maybe going a little bit step further, and besides the offensive line, it's going to matter outside the offensive line, and I'm for it.
Yeah, I think the question here is, do you think this size and weight, the formula being changed to heavier players, making more hit sticks and all that, is that really going to change how you build your team? Assuming that, like the meta of the game isn't very weird. It's like, the meta of the game makes sense and all that.
R.I.P. Deion Sanders.
Mm-hmm. I was about to say that.
R.I.P. Bob Sanders, because he's small.
Yeah.
True
that.
That's interesting. That's like an indirect nerf to Bob Sanders, assuming that he comes back.
Yeah, I don't know. Like me, I feel like if the meta doesn't change, or everyone's just gonna stick with the speed, this may not be the biggest factor unless like you are having like your Deion Sanders out there. But if you're having like fast linebackers per se, I don't know how much this will affect, because some linebackers might carry a little weight. I mean, I know Anthony Barr is huge. He's a big guy. I don't know if he's still even going to get knocked over. I'm just curious to see how this even affects people's just normal teams and normal meta, what they've been running on their defense and on their offense.
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will. I mean, I think that there's a number of things just from playing the game, not necessarily in this blog, that we're going to find out over the course of the year. And you're definitely going to want to make sure that you have a well-rounded roster, run stopping outside linebacker versus coverage outside linebacker. Make sure that you know your personnel and what counters what personnel the offense is bringing out on the field. So you definitely don't want to get caught out there on the field with small, with a sub package versus jumbo. I guess is what I'm saying.
I guess this also is a big nerf to the quarters defense that people like to play. If they just came out against quarters and you came out against maybe a run-heavy formation.
Oh my, are we gonna actually see what we should have saw at the start of Madden 17 until the community gave like the worst feedback ever, decided they couldn't stop the run?
Oh man, jeez.
That
I hope
took a
so.
360 real quick, and that's why we saw dollar so much, and then dime.
Mhm.
I'm honestly can't wait for the downfall of dollar. To be honest, like don't get me wrong, I mean, it's effective. We're not. I can't just sit here and debate that it's not effective and this, that, and the third. But it's extremely effective. But I just really hope those type of sets, dollar, big dime, 146, 236, Sam will, and quarters, they take a huge nerf against like I-form, maybe like single back jumbo or even single back ace a little bit too. So maybe bring back the I-form a little bit that's been missing besides
I just
power
don't want
roll all
to.
the time.
Yeah, I don't want to see people running the same 1 or 2 plays the whole game on defense. I want them to have like maybe 10 plays, because on offense you run like a good amount of plays, not a ton. You run what works, but on defense, guys are sticking between 1 or 2 plays.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I just want to be rewarded. If my opponent want to sit in dollar, quarter, whatever, and I come out and I want to run the ball and they want to stay in that and just be stubborn, they should be punished.
I'm with it.
I mean,
Alright.
is this the return of the eye close scheme by saying? I mean, or the I-form type
Oh,
here?
I'm
Or
definitely going to be
Seattle?
an I form this year. I have a good feeling.
22 to start the year. Don't at me.
All right,
right.
so the next update is probably why we're all here. Offline play now games now use playoff OT rules rather than regular season OT rules. Finally.
I'm game.
Cool.
Um, the next one is actually low-rated quarterback accuracy. I don't really know if we need to touch on this too much because I would say competitively you don't really see poor accuracy on quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I can't really think, draft champions, if that's another competitive game mode next year, now that they changed it. They give you an elite quarterback with pretty good accuracy. Since salary cap's the big game mode, everybody tries to get their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, Donovan McNabb, stuff like that.
I'd agree. I just like it simply for the fact that, there's not going to be Josh Johnson. I mean, it really wasn't that bad of a problem this year, but anything to help separate Josh Johnson and Cam Newton and Brady and those types of guys, anything that separates them is going to be welcome by me at least.
Yeah, same boat.
Yep, I've got nothing to add to that.
Yeah, I think it's a logical change. Next thing, I know Zam was really excited about this. He DM'd me 200 times about it. He said he can't wait. Defense in practice mode. So when a user is on defense in practice, the AI will not snap the ball if it senses the user making defensive adjustments. This gives plenty of time to practice, exotic defensive setups, blah, 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 blah. Bot won't snap it on you instantly every time in practice mode.
Amen.
Yes, and more. Yes.
Get your lab coats on, everybody. Don't need
Make
to
practice mode great again. Don't stop
Yeah.
there. Let us break the huddle every play. So that way we see our linemen going to the huddle. We can make the same adjustments. Take it one step further. This is just the
No.
beginning.
I'll even go a step further. Let us actually create a situation in practice mode. Like if we need to work on 4-minute offense, 2-minute offense, we're down 17 in the third quarter, something, that's where I would like to see practice mode in the future. But for this particular thing for defense, definitely a good thing. My only concern / question: the past couple of years we've seen practice mode not really reflect into game mode. I don't know if it's because the blitz angles that the computer takes or whatever the case may be, but sometimes defense blitzes don't reflect like how they would be in game mode. I wonder if we're going to go back to that mode or back to that way of what you do in practice reflects in game, or are we going to see more of the same thing? That's kind of my biggest curiosity with this one.
That's why I want to break the huddle. I mean, I attribute it to the linemen are already set in a spot versus if you make a crash to the right or the left in game before they get to the line, they actually line up in a different spot. So, yeah, I mean, definitely need to try to get practice mode. There's no point having practice mode if it doesn't reflect what you actually do in the game. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would like to see in the future that they, invite a friend to practice mode so you and your friend can just practice your faces off.
Yeah, I mean, everything else has moved to online besides practice mode. And practice mode is one of the more used. I guess, features by some people in the competitive world. So why not make that online as well?
Hey, pro tip for you PS4 guys, you actually do have online practice mode. Use the play share, whatever it's called.
Yes,
Have
sir.
one person load up practice mode, jump into play share with them, then you're in practice mode.
Oh, thanks,
That's
Daniel.
smart.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right. Yeah, so I guess just more customization. Keep giving us customization for practice mode. All right. So the next one on the list, slower players catching faster players. The game in the past could create some scenarios where ball carriers on breakaway runs could be caught behind by defenders, Deion Sanders, with slower speed. We were able to solve the long-standing legacy issue with some key changes to defensive run curves and stamina. Woo! Finally.
Probably the main complaint that I hear is my fast running back got chased down by Snacks Harrison. What the hell is going on?
Hey, Snacks is quick. Easy there, man.
I had Devin Hester on a kick return tracked down by Snacks Harrison. Why that guy had Snacks on his special teams, I don't know. But yeah, same thing.
I mean,
It's a power move.
very literally a power move.
I will say this though. I mean, seeing this brings a couple of players to mind. You know, welcome back Brashad Perriman. Welcome back Tavon Austin. Welcome back John Ross now, I guess, for the Madden 18 cycle. Just basically welcome back speed guys. Again, getting chased up by Snacks or Vince Wilfork or even Haloti Nada or something like that is definitely frustrating, especially when you're like 5 yards ahead of them, maybe even 10 yards ahead of them, and somehow they get like a speed boost to catch you and warp tackle and all that junk. So welcome back speed guys. That's the way I see it. I'm rejoicing.
To me, even more so than the speed guys, welcome back to the well-rounded players. I don't know if you guys are. I mean, everybody's familiar with Howard from the Bears,
Yeah.
but I loved his 88 card for salary cap. But he wasn't the fastest. But you know, if you got a decently fast player and you get a good lane, you should be able to separate from guys that aren't as fast or around. You know, because in real life, even if we're similar speed, if I've got a couple steps on you, chances are you're not catching me. So I'm very, very excited for this feature. I think we're going to see a lot more big plays this year offensively, and I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Chappy already said it. Bear down.
All right.
Next up is pretty big one, position-specific defensive hot routes. The hot routes available for defenders at the line of scrimmage are now position-specific to each player on the field. Users should now see a defensive hot routes that make sense for the position they are hot routing. This changes provide a variety of new tools that they can use to adjust their defenders when at the line of scrimmage. I break down, and then they literally list all of the changes. Zan, I'm just going to defer this to you overall because I want to hear your thoughts. I think it's too much to list out and go through each one.
Yeah, this is great. Schemability is going to be so much more detailed this year. The fact that you can take outside corners and choose whether or not you want them in a hard flat, cloud flat, soft squat, deep quarter, so like 1/4 of the field, or deep third, like a cover three. Just all that flexibility that you didn't used to have is going to lead to people being able to turn pretty much any blitz into any shell. You could turn any cover three blitz into all of a sudden an inverted cover two. I do think that there's some negatives though. And just quickly, I'll explain why. Unrealistic offensive money plays, as they're known. Those unrealistic setups beget unrealistic setups from the defense to stop them. So if we don't have the ability to put every single player on our field into, say, a hard flat, because that's like the quickest place that players like to attack, then that could be a problem. So maybe your inside linebacker in a 3-4, if you look at their assignments that they can play, hard flat isn't one of them. You can actually put them in a curled flat and then shade down to turn it into a hard flat, but that's a lot of clicks. At the same time, I want the ability to put anyone on the field into a deep zone. So, you know, we talk about Z-spot, Skimbo's play. He throw that little backbreaker post over the middle, right? And what actually became the meta to stop that was to take a really slow defensive tackle who had like 65 speed and put him on a deep zone down the middle of the field. So that way, by the time he got back there, and it took a while, he would actually be right under where Skimbo wanted to throw. With these actual zones, we don't have that ability currently. Overall, I think it's wonderful. I just think that there's one or two things that they need to add just as kind of some backup, some, I guess, fail safes in the event that some of these money plays take over and we don't have the abilities to put specific players on the field that we need to in, say, a hard flat or into a deep zone to take away a certain route. So I guess that wasn't quick. That was a little bit more long-winded, but yeah.
No, that was good though. That was actually good insight on that.
As I'm going through this, Jay Noel, shout out to Jay Noel on Twitter. He actually mentioned one thing that caught my eye kind of instantly as I'm going through this again is that your outside defensive back and I believe your safety cannot bluff blitz anymore. They've taken that completely out, which I think is definitely interesting on the adjustments that they've taken out for corners and safety. So that's something that's going to be interesting to see for guys that are like very blitz happy or like to send those corner blitzes and then fake it like, oh, he's in the flat the whole time type of deal. Like that's going to be interesting to me.
Another aspect of that is how those guys are going to play in the run game. I know a big thing was putting those guys in bluff blitzes to make them attack the line of scrimmage before dropping back to help out in the run game. Overall, I'm very happy with this adjustment. We'll see how the zones play because, like Zan said, it's concerning not being able to do certain things. But I'm hoping and I'm optimistic that the deep zones and everything will play, genuinely how they should, in which case we don't need to make those super custom crazy defensive setups. But we'll see how that plays out. But I think the sim community is going to like this. I think it's going to be good for viewership on Twitch watching a competitive scene. You're not necessarily seeing linemen drop back 30 yards downfield. Personally, I don't like seeing that, but it was kind of necessary this year, but hopefully it's not in 18. So I'm excited for it. I think it's great. And as a defensive guy, get so much more creative. And I don't know if they're going to have previous play on or off. I think that's kind of been an ongoing debate amongst the community recently, and that's not in this blog. But if that is on still, it'll allow you to disguise what you're doing more. You can come out in the cover 4 every time, but literally run a different defense within that same play call to disguise what you're doing. So I'm excited about that.
Yep. I like that you now can change your outside DBs and certain guys and get them into different deep zones. Me personally, I actually like seeing play art that looks like a 5-year-old decided to do it to stop things. I'm never in favor of kind of restricting players. I understand why they do, and I do agree with Chappy that it's probably good for Twitch. It's probably good for viewership. So everything kind of makes sense, to your average viewer. Guys they don't really know anything about the game. But I guess the last thing we can kind of talk about is what you just mentioned, Chappy, is previous play, on or off, and why?
Off.
Off
For me.
Off.
Personally, that's another thing. We've been talking about skill gap all day. That to me is a skill gap factor.
It's the biggest skill gap factor.
First and foremost, offensively and defensively. The other thing is it's going to help with the copycat that you see. I mean, yes, there's YouTube and Twitch, so that's going to happen regardless, but it's more difficult to copycat if you don't know the exact play or the exact formation or, whatever the case is. And it just feels like a crutch that they're just giving you. I mean, I wouldn't mind it in like CFM and stuff, but for competitive, I think it should be off personally.
I joked about it earlier on Twitter. I said previous play off plus all these new adjustments equals the exclamation point PB command being used more so than ever. Because people are going to be like, hey, what playbook has nickel normal cover 2 invert? I can't find it. Well, you got to create it. So yeah, protect the players. I've said that for years. You got to protect the competitive players. The bright minds in the game that are finding the stuff, putting in the lab work. It shouldn't be as easy as turning on Twitch or even just playing the person and the game telling you what it is. Because I personally think Twitch and YouTube get a really bad rap for spread of problem blitzes. And I'm just saying, the past 2 or 3 years, I haven't seen community blitzes nearly as rampant. Or they've been much more rampant the last 2 or 3 years than, say, like Madden 08 through 12.
A lot of that is that previous play. I mean,
yeah.
You play somebody, you see the play they run, And then on top of that, you get the replays after the game. So you know the play. You pretty much know the formation if you've got half a brain. And then you can just go to the replays after the game to see which way guys are crashing or blitzing. And I mean, it's just so easy to reproduce something that you play against. If it gives you a hard time, now you're running it, the next guy plays you, rinse and repeat. And even without YouTube or Twitch, stuff's going to spread very, very quickly with that previous play.
Twitch clips has been the best and the worst thing that's happened to Madden in my eyes. I mean, just like Zan and Chappy have said, protect the players. And to me, like, scheme, like being able to come up with a certain blitz or a certain scheme or a certain type of coverage and not be able to see that previous play, like, oh, he ran cover 2. Okay, I got to run cover 2 now. That's super effective. Having that versatility and having that, for that protection of, well, you don't know what I ran, so you got to figure it out and use your brain, that's going to be huge. I think that's probably going to be, again, like they've mentioned before, the biggest skill gap. Because no longer can, like, if they take it out, let's say they do, no longer can somebody just come in your stream, hit the Twitch clip replay or Twitch clip button like 50 times every time you run an offensive play. Be like, all right, got a scheme down. All right, I can run this scheme I guess run the skin bone scheme. I can run, all sorts of schemes and stuff like that. Or I can run blitzes, to the cows come home. Now it's like, well, what did he do? And now with previous play call, you could just completely protect yourself in your scheme. So more versatility, more creativity, needed. Much needed in competitive Madden now.
Yo, Hope, I think we're going to have to buy a winner's kit again.
Shit. But it is good. I do agree. I think previous play itself is a fine feature. I think it's a great introduction. I think, saying it's a crutch is like a derogatory name for it. But it is great for newer players. I do think for competitive, it needs to be off. And I think the other thing, too, you just kind of mentioned it, is like those who sell ebooks, EA seems to be happy to let those guys sell virtual plays and all that. And I think that's just another way to kind of help them out. But again, like we're saying, I think it increases the skill gap quite a bit. And to me, it's not just about like the highest level of play. Like that's not the only thing that matters. Like the mid-tier guys like myself that are like, it's frustrating to play a guy, beat him or be beating him, and then he just starts kind of running what I'm running because he can see it. I equated it to radar in a first-person shooter where you're just getting information for free. To me, it's too OP. It needs a nerf.
Good stuff. All right, well, that's pretty much it for the blog. If you guys have any last things you guys want to talk about, feel free. Otherwise, we're good to sign off.
I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a lot of fun. Haven't gotten to do a podcast before, so this has been a lot of fun. Hopefully, you guys do a lot more of these. I'm excited to see your channel grow.
You like sitting at the Algonquin round table?
Big fan.
Yeah.
First time, long time.
All right. Well, appreciate you guys coming on. For the guys that are listening on YouTube, make sure you guys go down in the description and hit the like button and check us out on iTunes. Guys that are listening on iTunes, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you guys drop us a review. Give us that 5-star if you guys enjoyed. And we'll see you guys all next time. Thank you guys for coming out.